A jury just handed Meta and YouTube a $6 million verdict in what could possibly be the most important social media lawsuit of our generation. But here's what nobody's talking about. The plaintiff didn't just claim that she was addicted, she claimed that these platforms were designed to addict her, and they knew it. So what happens when a court says that a product is too dangerous to sell without any warnings? What if the next verdict doesn't just award damages but fundamentally changes how the internet works entirely? Before I get into my take on all of this, let me trace back to where this actually kind of started. You've probably heard of Azar Raskin as the inventor of the Infinite Scroll.
I'm the hapless human being that invented Infinite Scroll.
And outlets have credited him for years. But here's the thing. That's currently up for debate. I mean, there's really no evidence that he actually invented Infinite Scroll, but he keeps claiming it. So instead, we're just going to say that Infinite Scroll, in its infancy, may have emerged from several people in between 2004 and 2005. In 2006, Facebook adapted this feature for their new photo albums and newsfeed. And then in 2007, major news sites began experimenting with the endless article feeds. But none of these were the real turning point. They were all just mostly experiments at the time.
Okay.
It really started to pick up momentum in 2008 when Tumblr was created as an infinite scrolling microblogging platform featuring multimedia. Basically, it had videos, photos, and from Tumblr, as all things, everything went downhill from there. Twitter switched from their original pagination platform to load content on demand. Now with the Infinite Scroll attached to the timeline, automatically fetching old tweets as users scroll down. But wait, there's one more piece before we get to the real story, and that was Vine.
Free Shavakadu!
Chip away my life.
Murder.
As you probably already know, Vine was the true original short-form platform, the beginning of the entire industry. And here's the funny thing about Vine. They didn't actually have Infinite Scroll when they launched. It actually relied on users pressing a button to load more clips. But it didn't really last long because by 2014 it was already replaced with the infinite scrolling feed. So why the change? Probably because they discovered something critical about Infinite Scroll. The app introduced background preloading, where it anticipated the next videos in the queue to ensure instant playback, eliminating buffer and delays that could cause a break to the flow state. And by flow state, I kind of mean, doom scrolling. Vine pretty much crafted the formula that we see today on our current platforms. We got the 6-second videos,
Blueberries!
Oh my god.
the infinite scroll, preloading videos so that there's zero resistance at all when scrolling, and then Vine just died. Musically merged with TikTok and the mantle was taken over. TikTok and its TikTokification of the internet really began here. And you know what I mean by the TikTokification of the internet. Everyone and their mother was making TikToks.
Eat your vegetables.
And everybody and their mother was seemingly scrolling too. And that brings us to March 25th, 2026, a landmark bellwether trial in the nationwide social media addiction litigation just resulted in a $6 million verdict against Meta and YouTube. The real story is why they lost. The jury didn't just find them negligent, they found them guilty of malicious intent. Think about that for a second. How do you prove that a tech giant intentionally built a dangerous product? How did they bypass the usual defenses? Usually, Section 230 protects platforms from being sued for what users post. The answer lies in how the lawyers framed the argument. They didn't treat social media as a platform for speech. They framed Instagram and TikTok as products, engineered specifically to create behavioral addiction in minors. I mean, this strategy was similar to how cigarette companies were framed in the 90s and early 2000s, proving the manufacturer knew the dangers and hid them. And by the way, Snapchat and TikTok settled privately before the trial even began. Nothing says more that you're guilty than settling privately in this kind of case. They already knew they were going to be guilty. Imagine if Meta and YouTube did the same thing, we probably wouldn't even know about this case. I mean, guys, this is like massive. This could fundamentally change how short-form content is regulated. I mean, we already have age verification coming, but like, we could even have more restrictions on top of that. And by the way, there's thousands of other trials waiting in the US for this exact same answer. Other people who have claimed that they have been addicted and it has negatively affected their lives. This case has successfully reframed social media harm as a product liability issue, allowing plaintiffs to bypass Section 230 protections. This case has essentially opened Pandora's box. And I don't even have to tell you how this is likely going to push more officials towards age verification laws and other restrictions. It may even be like forced mandatory warnings and transparency laws, much like how the tobacco industry is treated today. But there's one critical distinction that we have to make here. Nicotine is a physical substance addiction, and social media is a behavioral one. So how do you prove malice in something that doesn't physically poison you?
You sound like a dig-dag Bobby.
That's where the psychology gets dark. Social media addiction is almost exclusively mediated through smartphones, not laptops or desktops. Platforms like TikTok, Instagram Reels, and YouTube Shorts are designed specifically for the handheld screen. That's why these videos are vertical formatted. Vine and TikTok popularized this with the vertical format video, so people didn't have to turn their phone sideways to utilize the entire screen for video. This makes me wonder, what's the connection between this and nomophobia? If you've never heard of nomophobia is a psychological term to describe the fear of disconnection and absence of mobile smart devices. Emphasis on the smart devices part. Psychology still has a lot of research to do here, and I plan on making a video about dumb phones soon. But the link to me is very clear. Nomophobia and social media addiction are deeply intertwined. The rise of social media has normalized the expectation of immediate availability, turning mobile phones from a utility into a psychological extension of the self. Many argue that we are slowly turning into internet cyborgs. I mean, essentially, our phone is now an extension of our being. We even have smartwatches now that basically attach it to ourselves. And soon, we might even have brain chips that connect us to our phones. This doesn't get any more cyborg than that. How's about a computer in your head? I couldn't even imagine. Imagine doom scrolling through your eyes. This epidemic of kids being so intertwined with their smart devices, including tablets, is obvious to everybody. Even the youngest among us are aware of it, not just the boomers. It's not just the boomers saying that kids are addicted to their phones and tablets. We don't call... Everybody says iPad babies. Even Gen Alpha is saying iPad baby. They make fun of other kids who are addicted to iPads. Or just any tablet in general, especially smartphones, right? Any smart device, we'll say. But here's the part that really ties back to the malice finding in the trial. Children raised on these devices are dependent on the internet for identity construction. Social media profiles are integral to who they are. And I grew up in a time when putting personal information online was completely taboo and unheard of. I mean, I still kind of get the heebie-jeebies about it. That's why I'm a dog. The lawsuit alleges that features like infinite scroll and push notifications aren't by accident. They are deliberate designs to maximize engagement. And the short form videos? They are literally B.F. Skinner's psychological mechanism of variable ratio reinforcement. In gambling, a slot machine doesn't pay out every time you pull the lever. Sometimes you win big, sometimes you win small, or sometimes nothing. Boom! Boom! That unpredictability is what makes it addictive. The brain releases dopamine not just when the reward is received, but in anticipation of the reward. This is exactly what drives doom scrolling. We keep swiping, not knowing if the next video will be funny, shocking, or life-changing. Maybe it has answers to getting rich or getting fit, or maybe it's the perfect cooking recipe. I don't know. Occasionally, one of those videos hits the jackpot, triggering a massive dopamine spike, just like hitting a slot machine. It is no different. With infinite scrolling, there's no natural stopping point at all. This removes cues that tells people to stop watching, similar to a slot machine that spins until the player runs out of money. And then there's the autoplay feature. Videos just start automatically, removing the friction of clicking play, like we used to back in the day. This lowers the barrier to entry, making it easier to fall into a trance-like state. Have you ever just freshly installed TikTok or just freshly opened it? Anytime you open TikTok, there's no home screen or anything. It goes straight into the videos. And then it encourages you to swipe. And you want children to engage with this? I mean, seriously, like, the prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for, impulse control, decision making, and understanding long-term consequences, like basically the most important part of your brain, especially to function in today's society, doesn't fully develop until your mid-20s. Doom scrolling and short-form content are literally rewiring developing brains. I mean, you wouldn't give us kids cigarettes, right? You wouldn't bring them to a casino. They're not even allowed in there anyway. So why do we give them TikTok? Why do we give them smartphones or tablets with no parental guards? And you can argue that this is the parents' fault too. But at the same time, we've just seen that a litigation against these companies is for malpractice. Design malpractice. These companies built these platforms that way, and now a jury has said that it wasn't just bad design, it was complete malice. We used to make such a big deal about TV and video games. People tried to compare video games to gambling back then too. But here's the difference. Back then, it was all mostly just speculation. And video game addiction is a real thing, but it's kind of like not even close to the same level as what we're seeing today. Everybody, as far as I know, collectively agrees that doom scrolling is bad. I mean, especially for kids. And yet, we just couldn't seem to get away from it. Now, we are seeing legal consequences, something really tangible, something that actually harmed somebody. And the platforms got sued and they were found acting in malice. They are guilty by jury. Honestly, how do you think you were affected by short-form content? If you're here watching this video, you're at least one of those who can still stomach watching long-form content. There are some people out there that I've heard of who cannot hold their attention on anything longer than 30 seconds. I've heard of people that go on YouTube and they never even go to the home tab. When you open the YouTube app and you go to the shorts, and you go to any shorts video at all, and then you close the app and then reopen it, it goes straight to playing shorts automatically. Some people literally never leave that screen. It's just kind of sad to me, really. And this is all by design too, predatory design. But you have to wonder, how could they not do this? TikTok basically proved that short-form content was the ultimate infinite money glitch. So of course, Instagram and YouTube, they had no choice. They had to make their platforms the same way. They had to make them as addictive as possible while they had the chance to, while it was still legal. Doesn't that sound familiar? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Do you think this is going to blow up? Or is this case a big nothing burger? Will you continue to doom scroll? Or are you ready to opt out? In my next video, I plan on discussing dumb phones and digital minimalism. Because if the courts are finally saying the problem is the design, maybe the solution is actually to change the device entirely.
No, but you should be clear about which part you invented, because
Yeah.
Aza did not invent infinite scroll for social media.
Correct. So this was back in 2006. Do you remember when